Rabbi Friedman, hello. Thank God it's Tuesday. So good to have you with us. The world is getting more topsy-turvy with every passing second, and can't keep up with it anymore. But the question is, since it's beginning to look a little bit like war, hopefully not, can we say that this is the war of Gog and Magog, the one that was predicted sort of by our prophets before the coming of Mashiach? Is this something that is resembling that particular situation? And can you please tell us more about what the war of Gog and Magog really is? I mean, we all know that something like that is supposed to happen, but the details of it and exactly what to expect, if there's anything to be expected, maybe you can make this a little bit more clearer for all of us.
Oh, the predicted war of Gog and Magog is in the Middle East, not between Russia and America. So it's wrong location. Whether there's going to be a war remains to be seen. So let's not jump to any conclusions. I don't know why there would be a war. I'm not sure exactly what we're fighting over. I don't know. So we will see. We will see. But the surprises keep coming, don't they?
Yes, they certainly are. Rabbi Friedman, however, some Hasidic leaders in the 19th century believed that the Napoleonic War was actually a war of Gog and Magog.
I could live with that.
Why? How did they come to those conclusions, decisions?
I don't know. But I think someplace the previous Rebbe said that World War II was not Gog and Magog, which is much later. So it would be nice if the war of Gog and Magog was an ideological war, not a physical battle. Because that's really what we need. We need an ideological showdown once and for all to figure out what's right and what's wrong. But another battle on the battlefield, what's that going to do? What would the point of that be? So hopefully there's not going to be a war. There's going to be political posturing. Who's going to outsmart who? But really, the ideological war is necessary. It would be welcome. A military battle, who needs it?
Well, it looks like the ideological war has been going on for the past couple of years, for sure, very actively, and it's elevating as well. I mean, people are basically awakening, coming to good decisions. The morality is definitely growing all over the world. There's, for a change, understanding of right and wrong, and in a good way. But what about the physical? If it has been prophesized, is it a must for the war to take place before the coming of the Mashiach?
Yes, it does have to happen. The question is, does it have to be physical? There has to be some catalysmic event that prepares the world for godliness and for goodness. I don't see how a military battle is going to do that. So there has to be, we got to be completely shaken up, but in a constructive, positive way. So an ideological battle that leads to some good conclusions, that would be wonderful. Although it'll shake people up, because some of our deepest held beliefs are going to turn out to be wrong. But to shoot each other and drop bombs, what's that going to do?
Rabbi Friedman, I can't help but draw a parallel. I mean, the Napoleonic War was a war against Russia, which was sort of thought by Hasidic leaders to be a possibility of a war of Gog and Magog. Well, some Hasidic leaders came to that conclusion, and now we have Russia again. A couple of centuries later, and it's Russia again. Why do you think Russia is the major player in all of these happenings, and whatever leads us to think of the war of Gog and Magog?
It seems like, and I'm just guessing now, the sages who claimed that was the war of Gog and Magog, they were lobbying that should be. You know what I mean? They were saying, can't we make this the war? Let this be the one. But it turned out that it wasn't. So again, there has to be some kind of showdown. It doesn't have to be military. Why Russia is involved? Russia is a strong power, both in the positive and in the negative. But it is I don't know, a compliment or good news or bad news that Russia is still a major player even after the collapse of the Union. I guess it's more of a compliment, because those who thought that Russia is powerful because of the Soviet Union now realize that Russia could do it by itself. Doesn't need an empire. It can be a superpower by itself.
Rabbi Friedman, a while back, you said we have to follow, the state of the world kind of depends on the state of the Jewish people in the world. I remember that conversation. And to be honest, if I was to say where Jewish people feel the best right now, as weird as, I hope I'm not wrong. That's just an observation. Huh?
Go ahead and say it.
I think in Russia.
Yes.
I think Rabbi Lazar, the head Chabad of Russia, has made a tremendous impact there, and the life in Russia for Jewish people is amazing. It's high end. There's a lot of respect. There's freedoms. Education is amazing for the Jewish people. So it's a really good quality of life for the Jewish people. Why is it so, and how is it connected to what's going on, or is it connected?
Well, it's definitely a good sign. It has never happened in history that a country where Judaism was thriving turned out to be a disaster. It's never happened. The disaster always comes after Judaism is repressed or rejected. Then everything turns sour. But there has never been a country where Judaism was alive and well as it is today in Russia, and that country turned out to be bad news. So this, if anything negative happens, it would be a big surprise, because history doesn't support it. So yes, the fact that Judaism is thriving in Russia means that nothing terrible is going to happen there.
But do you have any kind of ideas what kind of role Russia will play in this entire case scenario? Because right now, I got to tell you, we immigrated for oppression reasons, for being Jews. that my parents left 40 years ago. I was very little. And I never had really good attitude towards Russia. In this entire period of time, I thought it was a country of oppression, and I never had trust for this country. And lately, I got to say that I am changing my mind, and I'm changing my mind about Putin. Not that it matters what I think, but I'm just sharing. and it's just, I just see a lot of people will still disagree with me, and we have those calls on the radio that, why are you supporting Putin? But basically, it's just a healthy observation that whatever he's doing right now is better than anybody else in the entire world as a leader. He's more moral, he's stronger. And I listened to his speech yesterday. He's not against anybody. It's the opposite. He does not consider Ukraine and something, he says it's our relatives. We have relatives there. It's friends, it's relatives. It's not just neighbors. So he has a very kind attitude. I don't know if we can believe it, but what he is saying is nice. What do you think? Can anybody be trusted right now? Is Putin the good guy in this entire case scenario, the way it looks?
It could very well be, because, as we've spoken many times, the good is going to come from unlikely places, and the evil will come from. So, America and Russia, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Yeah. Don't make any bets.
Yeah.
Just expect surprises. So, yeah, it could very well be. Everything else is upside down. Why shouldn't this be?
Yeah, this is where our mind is blown, and especially of the Russian community that is so young, immigrating from Russia. We're like less than 50 years old immigration, and everybody just came into this country and just got themselves settled down, and now everything is turning the other way, or at least that's what it seems like.
Well, domestically for sure. But the miracle of Judaism thriving in Russia, it is a bigger miracle than coming out of Egypt. It really is. Egypt was not against Jewish beliefs. It wasn't against Jewish religion. It wanted to protect itself from being outnumbered because the Jews were multiplying. And I know anti-Semitism always has an excuse, but the Torah testifies that the reason that they were enslaving the Jews is because they were afraid that the Jews are becoming too powerful. So it wasn't a religious battle. It wasn't a racist battle. It was a political move. It turned out that for Pharaoh it was a religious awakening, but not that he was against religion. In fact, he wasn't against God. He had a dozen gods himself. And he was a god. Everybody was a god. There was gods everywhere. So the fact that Russia now is host to such incredible Jewish activity, and not only in Russia, but in all the former Soviet Union nations, the miracle is, it's a good thing that we're numb, or we'd go crazy from this miracle. Because anyone in the time of Gorbachev who knew anything about Russia, they had to read the news 3 times over and over to make sure that they really read it right. It was so unbelievable. People don't know the lengths, the effort, the intensity, and the brilliance of the war against Judaism in Russia. We know anti-Semitism. The world is not aware of this incredible, incredible chapter of history. And for that to turn around and Russia becoming a seat of great Jewish Renaissance with support, not only permission, but support of the government. In their wildest dreams, no one could ever have imagined this. So when people say, how come miracles don't happen in our times? Some of the miracles that are recorded in the Torah, I have a feeling that if they weren't recorded in the Torah, nobody would have noticed.
Rabbi Friedman, would you attribute such a phenomenal, I don't know if movement is the right word, miracle, to Chabad solely, or would you think that there's more, there's other reasons for Judaism to gain so much?
Well, the Renaissance is definitely, to a great degree, because of Chabad. Is that what destroyed communism? It must. It must have contributed, because as much as they tried to destroy Judaism, Judaism would not leave. It would not die. So in a sense, the victory was the victory of Judaism over atheism. So there are people who have this big debate. Who gets credit for destroying communism? President Reagan or the Lubavitcher Rebbe? It turns out they were working together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a fact?
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. And not too many people know it, unfortunately.
No. Because it was done so smoothly. Not a shot was fired. And that's brilliant. Brilliant. Look, the time had come anyway. Let's be realistic about it. It's not like they had to go to war against a powerful force, which was communism. Communism was already on shaky legs. But there's something to that. Reagan does get a little credit for it, and the Rebbe, over 50 years, not an overnight success, but you remember there was this big Lag BaOmer parade. I forget which year it was. Before Gorbachev, before Perestroika. The Rebbe was speaking outdoors in front of 770. There were thousands of kids gathered for the parade with their parents, with adults, with a big, big, big crowd. The streets were closed off. The Rebbe was speaking in a microphone, and all of a sudden he started to speak Russian. And I don't remember the whole thing, but what the Rebbe was saying is that the Russian Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. So any official, any employee of the government who interferes with a Jew's freedom to practice Judaism should be fired immediately. I don't know who that was addressed to and what the occasion was that such a message could be. But it made it, of course, to Russia. The government heard it. Was it Brezhnev at the time? I don't remember. But that was a turning point, that you could do that publicly. Even the Rebbe was against demonstrations, anti-Soviet demonstrations. This was, in a sense, a pro-Soviet. Defend your constitution. Your constitution guarantees freedom of religion. So if people are not following the constitution, fire them. It needs to be studied. There's a lot behind that. And the whole fight, the whole battle, even the previous Rebbe who left Russia and came to America, it wasn't as a survivor of the war or a refugee. He came here to fight communism because there they had his hands tied. So he came here to continue the war, not to escape. And of course, when the Rebbe succeeded the previous Rebbe, he intensified the war. So all the clandestine yeshivas, the underground schools, the cat and mouse game played with the Soviets, for all those years, it was a massive, brilliant, strategic battle. I don't know exactly how, but we know that Judaism won. Big time.
Thank God.
Even the newspapers, when communism declared bankruptcy, even some of the American newspapers came close to calling it a miracle. Because it was the only word that fit.
Rabbi Friedman, but what do we do here if this now becomes the bad place? If, God forbid, but, if things are getting so reversed and Russia is good, America is bad, because realistically, those are the two that seems to be mostly against flipping sides. What do we do here? How do we go on? What is our mission?
Exactly what you're doing. The problem with America is not that it's evil, but that it's lame. It has lost its idealism. It chooses the path of least resistance. And that's sad. Russians are much more idealistic. As evil as communism was, it was an ideal. A wrong one, a misguided one. But you cannot accuse Russians of not being idealistic. So the Russians who came to Israel brought back idealism to a country that was getting a little jaded. Here also, wherever the Russians come, they bring an idealism. They don't understand sitting around just looking for comfort. You got to stand for something. You got to believe in something. You got to commit to something. So what you're doing is exactly what Russians do when they come to any country. Continue the pursuit of an ideological purpose. So anything we can do to make things better and not allow this laziness or this indifference. Bad news also keeps you from becoming indifferent. But that's not the way we want it to go. We want it to be positive and out of goodness, out of comfort, in security. But then people tend to fall asleep. Russians don't. Russians, for the last couple of 100 years, have gotten used to not sleeping. He couldn't sleep.
Rabbi Friedman, this closeness of Chabad of Russia, Rabbi Lazar personally, with Russian President Vladimir Putin, there is this really there's this closeness, this communication level. It's very personal. And can this hopefully not backfire for Jews all over the world, especially in this particular situation where it seems like Russia is against the whole world at the moment, and but very close to the Jewish people.
Yeah, and it's not a political move. There's no need politically for the relationship or the friendship between Rabbi Lazar and Putin. It's genuine, it's personal, it is not a political thing. So it's not like he needs Jewish votes.
But
doesn't need anybody's votes.
For sure not. But the view of the entire world now that, the world is turning against Putin, and Putin has this very close relationship with the Jewish people. Do you think it can backfire for Jewish people all over the world and get anti-Semitism on the rise again? God forbid.
First of all, we don't know what's going to be. If Putin is going to become more popular, less popular, depends on his next move. But he's definitely in the public eye. He is not an unknown, maybe one of the best known people in the world. And that's okay. That's what he wants. Fine. Just do the right thing. So we'll see. It's a little too early to panic.
Rabbi Friedman, we have maybe another 10 minutes, and it would be a shame to end this program without learning a little bit Torah and seeing how the current Parsha possibly reflects or teaches us something about our current world order. Maybe some enlightenment there, as always.
Well, the first thing is, the Parsha is called Vayakel. Moshe gathered the Jews. If you picture the scene, there are 2 million or 2.5 million Jews out there in the desert. What do you mean gather them? What were they, in different cities? You have to gather them? Okay, so he called them together to tell them something, like got their attention. But still, the emphasis on that word seems to be telling us something significant. This is after Moshe comes down from the mountain, having gained forgiveness from God for the Jewish people, for having created the golden calf. The creation of the golden calf caused a great divide among the people, as you can imagine. Well, I didn't do it. I said, no, you were there. You were part of the... Anyway, the people got very fragmented, very, very antagonistic. They didn't trust each other. They were, you got us into this trouble. Why did you do this? Where were you? Why didn't... It was intense. I mean, the event was pretty shocking. So after gaining forgiveness for the people, what was the next thing Moshe did? He brought them back together. It's one thing to be forgiven, but then you got to go on with life. So what does it take to be able to start again after you mess up and you're forgiven? Now what? So you would think Moshe would give them a lecture. Don't do that anymore. He didn't say anything about it. He gathered them together and instructed them on how to build a Mishkan. In other words, he gave them a project they can all work on. Everybody donated, everybody contributed, everybody had some participation in this project. Today, that's called bringing Mashiach. We need to be united. We need to be cooperating on a single project. The project today is not called building a Mishkan. It's called bringing Mashiach, who will build the temple in Jerusalem. And the Muslims will help, because that's what Mashiach is all about. When the whole world is cooperating on one single project. So the sages said that the temple was built in such a way, the walls were very thick. The windows would usually be fashioned that on the outside, the opening is broader and it gets narrower as it gets inside, so that you catch more light to bring into the room. But in fact, it was created the other way. It was wide on the inside and narrow on the outside, telling us that the temple didn't need the light of the sun. The world needed the light of the temple, and particularly the menorah. The menorah that Aaron lit in the temple illuminated the world. Because illumination doesn't mean bright light. Illumination means clarity of vision, the ability to see what's real, what's true. And that came from the temple. So the sages said, if the nations who destroyed the temple and destroyed Israel, if they had any idea how much goodness they were getting from the light of the menorah, they wouldn't have destroyed the temple. They would have surrounded it with legions of soldiers to protect it from harm. Which means that was not strictly a Jewish activity. It had universal impact. And that's what we need again. The light of Torah bringing its blessing to the entire world. The first requirement is cooperation. We've got to get together. We can't be fragmented and scattered and going in opposite directions or in many directions. We need to get focused. What the world needs now is not more love. What the world needs now is more truth, clarity, sanity, and that can only come from cooperation. People running in different directions, screaming at the top of their lungs, this is not helpful. So is it happening? You see it happening.
Absolutely. We got behind the truckers. How much easier will it be to get behind something greater? People are willing to unite behind a great cause and very enthusiastically these days. So, Rabbi Friedman, amazing how you just cleared up how this Torah portion is so parallel to everything that is happening in our lives, and that this is obviously what we all need to learn and understand in order to understand our reality and the direction we're going in. So absolutely.
It's the same project. The same project.
Yeah.
The first time it didn't last long enough. The second time it didn't last long enough. But the third time, that's the winner. This time it will last forever.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman. This is definitely the best time of the week for all of us, where we can, get so much clarity and so much positivity, and realistically just gain that patience that we need at this particular time in our life in order to kind of get through these very interesting, to say the least, times. Well, I'm running out of adjectives.
Very interesting.
Rabbi Friedman, we're about to go into a new Rosh Chodesh. What would you like to leave us with today? Words of wisdom.
It's a new month coming, but it's the same month. It's another month of Adar. So if you didn't take full advantage of the first one, you've got another one. Taking advantage means increasing the joy. How do you increase the joy? We talked about this, right? How do you increase the joy? By being more enthusiastic. How do you become more enthusiastic? By being more grateful. These are doable things. The result will be more joy.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Every word has its weight in gold when it comes from you and from the Torah source. And thank you so much. Thank you for bringing it to our radio. Thank you for bringing it to the world. And very grateful for every second that you allocate for us this time once a week. And it's priceless for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being so Russian.
We'll try to keep it up and keep it going. Thank you so much.